CTV News at 5 with Hudson Mack.
CTV News has also learned the legislature comptroller, the person responsible for supervising the quality of accounting and financial reporting, has been let go. Dan Arbic held that position until recently. His job has been eliminated and he is being offered severance. A new position of executive financial officer has been created. Bob Faulkner from the Office of the Auditor General will fill the new position on an interim basis. In a statement, the Speaker of the Legislature says this change was endorsed by the Office of the Auditor General after an organizational review. The BCGEU says it is heading back to the bargaining table with the province. The two sides are expected to meet later this week. The BCGEU is looking for a new collective agreement for its roughly 25,000 members who work directly for the BC government. Talks broke down after mediation failed last June. Since then, the BCGEU has conducted 4 one-day strikes and implemented an overtime ban to back demands for a collective agreement. The negotiations will be conducted with a media blackout in place. The union last proposed a 3.5% increase for the first year of a 2-year contract and a cost of living increase of about 2% for the second. Wages have been frozen the past 2 years. Sparks were flying at the UBCM convention as politicians and law enforcement went head-to-head debating the pros and cons of decriminalizing marijuana.
Smoking marijuana is stupid, and you become stupider.
More than 200 mayors and councillors from across the province expressed their opinions this morning at the convention. Stop the Violence BC spokesman Dr. Evan Wood led the conference. A number of municipalities are calling for the decriminalization of marijuana so it can be taxed. Others argue pot needs to be pushed out of communities.
I think that decriminalization or legalization is not going to take the marijuana production issue off the table. The organized crime involvement in that production, they're going to continue to exploit that commodity because of proximity to the United States and viable markets.
Well, I think that the criminalization of marijuana possession is a failed public policy. First of all, it hasn't stopped or deterred people. There's 585,000 British Columbians who use marijuana in the last year. That's a sign of a law that's not working. And not only does the law not work, it helps actually create the economic conditions within which organized crime create huge profits and violence on our streets.
Municipal leaders will vote on a resolution calling for the decriminalization of marijuana on Wednesday. Victoria Police says it is trying to serve you better by finding ways to improve safety on the streets in Victoria and Esquimalt. Victoria Police are reacting to a staffing and deployment analysis of the department in 2011. Officers say to improve efficiency and effectiveness, a number of positions will be eliminated and reassigned. Officers patrolling in pairs will now be split up, with an officer remaining in the office while the other one is out on patrol. The police department says it has no choice. With shrinking budgets, it has to move around resources to help keep the crime rate down.
What you need to do is start doing this rather than reactively, proactively, get ahead of it. And the best form of being proactive is being preemptive. But if the goal is to be attentive to reducing police costs, which we all know is becoming increasingly important, we would argue that the single best way to do that is to reduce crime volume in a sustained kind of way. And that doesn't mean being able to cut immediately, because that isn't going to work. You have to take the long view and say, how can we, in effect, invest now to help us not need police officers in the future.
The department says it will also focus on introducing new technology to help it fight crime, and it is requesting additional resources to add another crime analyst to the force. The man who flipped his rig on the Malahat, dumping thousands of liters of fuel into the Goldstream River, will serve no jail time or pay any fine. James Allen Smith learned his fate today at the Western Communities Courthouse in Colwood. The judge handed Smith a 3-month conditional sentence and 200 hours of community service, which must be completed in fish habitats on Vancouver Island. It was April 2011 when Smith lost control on the Malahat, plowing his rig into a rock wall, dumping 42,000 liters of gasoline and 700 liters of diesel fuel into the Goldstream River.
Well, he's hoping that time will heal all wounds, including the community and his own. And he's hoping to be able to get back to work and he's looking forward to the opportunity to put some time back into the community through the community work service hours that the judges imposed.
I feel quite confident that, again, the federal fisheries officer involved will be in contact with the Nanaimo Probation Office, and enough suitable work will be put forward to the probation office that I don't think it'd be a problem. But in case it was, there was a little clause there that the probation officer could have another option if that work wasn't available.
Smith's driving license has also been revoked for the next 2.5 years. He has been ordered to seek drug and alcohol counseling and must adhere to a strict curfew. If Smith breaches any of these conditions, he could face jail time. Well, after months of resignations and poor poll results, Christy Clark and the BC Liberals suffered another major blow today. After less than a year on the job, Clark's chief of staff is stepping down and apologizing. But what Ken Bosenkool has to apologize for isn't clear. CTV's Louise Hartland joins us now live with that story. Louise?
Andrew, the Premier's office released a vague statement today saying earlier this month it was made aware of an incident of concern involving Ken Bosenkool. And following a review, the Premier says she has accepted the resignation of her chief of staff. This is Bosenkool walking through the corridors of the legislature. In a letter of resignation to the Premier, he says, "Earlier this month, I was involved in an incident where I acted inappropriately. I was wrong, regretted my behavior very much, and immediately and unconditionally apologized." Bosenkool went on to say he also let his family down and will return to Calgary to be closer to them. Reports suggest Bosenkool was out at a downtown Victoria pub with colleagues following an MLA golf tournament 2 weeks ago when the inappropriate act happened. Today, the Premier was staying tight-lipped about what that incident was.
I mean, as I said, it was completely unexpected. No one expects these kinds of things to happen, and but you know, every employer knows that unexpected things happen, and as a result, sometimes decisive action has to be taken, and that's the job, and that's what I did.
Clark says the police are not involved and there was nothing criminal about the incident in question. Effective immediately, Dan Doyle will serve as the Premier's new Chief of Staff. Doyle has served as the chair of BC Hydro and has been a public servant for 36 years. Senior political science professor Dr. Janai Aragon says Bosenkool's resignation is yet another blow to the Premier's image and her leadership.
Well, this is a political hit that's in the stomach that leaves you gasping for air, because all of us now want to know, what did he do? What was this indiscretion that took place? So you have the Premier make this comment about a sick culture in Victoria, and you have to wonder, what possibly sick or inappropriate thing did the Chief of Staff do?
Clark came under fire last week for saying Victoria has a sick culture and that there are no real people here. There is a lot of uncertainty about the Liberal government at this time. The fall session was cancelled at the legislature, meaning the halls will be empty and there will be no question period until February. That's just 3 months before the next provincial election.
An interesting election that will be.
Oh, yes, it will.
Thanks, Louise.
You're welcome.
A 29-year-old Courtenay man is in police custody after a Comox Valley taxi driver had his vehicle stolen. RCMP say the driver ditched his car Saturday morning when he thought his passenger was about to rob him. The passenger then took off with his cab. RCMP say the man eventually turned himself in. He faces charges of robbery and theft over $5,000. Nanaimo RCMP are asking for your help tonight to keep an eye out for any suspicious activity after a rash of dumpster fires. Fire crews say in the last 8 days they've put out 8 dumpster fires. The first happened at Barons Road Library, where a young blonde man on a skateboard was spotted in the area shortly before the flames ignited. But what followed was even more disturbing. RCMP say on Saturday a cart filled with newspaper was pushed behind an elementary school and lit on fire. Several businesses and homes were also targeted.
Again, on the 17th, there is a house fire in that there is debris on houses under construction in the 800 block of Sunderland. That's right opposite Mathail Sutton Park. Witnesses said there was 2 blonde-haired young teenage girls who were seen near the fire at that time. Other than that, we have very little to go on. What we're seeing is in the north end near Home Depot and Michael's, there's debris was nearby that was set on fire. So that could have easily spread and caused secondary damage.
If you have any information about these incidents, call RCMP, and if you spot any suspicious activity around dumpsters, call 911. A Lanceville elementary school is getting ready to build a new world of play in memory of 2 Nanoose First Nations boys who were killed in a house fire. Jordan and Devin Drake were sleeping over at a family member's house when flames tore through the small home in January. The 2 boys couldn't escape. The devastating loss sparked an outpouring of community support, and nearly 8 months later, $50,000 has been raised to build a memorial playground. The park will be at Seaview Elementary and replace the aging structure there now. It will be called Angels at Work so Angels can play.
I think the thing that really pulled everyone together as a whole is the idea that it's going to be a bit of that living piece, that in remembering the 2 boys, we actually also are bringing something that helps all the other students have stronger hearts and hopefully adds their longevity. I think that's one of the reasons there's so much passion behind the community coming together.
Construction on the playground will start next spring.